Once again, my name is Larry McGugan. I work in the Long Range Planning Division at TDOT. I've been with TDOT for about 5.5 years. So this is just a really good opportunity. In this position, we get a chance to get out and talk to the community, get feedback, also talk to our local partners and those we consider like the cities and counties and the different agencies across the state, as well as, of course, within TDOT and other state agencies, just to be able to try to make the transportation system better for the state of Tennessee. So today I get the chance to come out and talk to you all about the 25-year long-range transportation plan that we've been undergoing at the state for about 2 years now. This process began back in August of 2013. I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go, but I'm gonna show a video which will do a very good job of explaining to you all what's going on with the plan. So let me get that started.
Every day, you get up and go. You go for your business. You go for the things you need. You go for your family. We too get up and go for your business, for the things you need, for all of our families. There are many facets to the Tennessee Department of Transportation, and if it moves in our state, we help it get there, whether by air, public transit, water, rail, car, bicycle, or simply on foot. Tennesseans are moving like never before. We have worked hard to provide one of the highest rated transportation networks in the country, and we plan to get better. We are developing a new 25-year long-range plan for our state. This plan will provide the foundation for prioritizing transportation investments across the state. You are the customer, it's your investment, and you deserve a voice. The purpose of the long-range plan is to create a framework to address current and future projects and funding. This means the vision we create today will impact where and when we invest in our future transportation network. With more fuel-efficient vehicles, less demand for fuel, and a rapidly increasing population, Tennessee is faced with the challenging task of keeping up with transportation growth, all while balancing constricting budgets. Maintaining existing infrastructure, replacing the old, and creating new pathways to growth are all needs for the future. Our duty is to ensure a vision that meets the needs of the future in a financially responsible manner. So we want to hear your wishes, your concerns, and your needs. Representatives are traveling the state meeting with community groups to seek input. In addition, a quick and easy online survey is located on TDOT's homepage. Remember, this is not just a TDOT investment. This is our investment for our future and theirs.
Cities, counties, states, different agencies do comprehensive plans, and usually they go out 25 and 30 years, just to be able to see, how to make the agency, be able to fulfill the needs that they're trying to meet. So obviously at the state with TDOT, we're looking at all the transportation needs across the state. So, and we're looking out over a 25-year span. Now that doesn't mean we're not going to do another plan for 25 more years, but that's what we're looking out at right now. Maybe 5 to 6 to 7 years from now, we'll do another plan, or maybe update this plan to kind of look at the current needs at that time. And different travel forecasts have changed and trends and things like that. So right now, like I said, the plan's been going on for 2 years. We have been going around doing this presentation, or actually doing a different presentation to over 5,000 different residents across the state. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that. But what we did was we used the little clickers that we handed out to you to get input. So as we go throughout this presentation, I have several questions for you that I'm going to ask that are going to kind of build upon the input that we already received across the state from those other 5,000 residents. So explain to you a little bit how this is going to work. So we'll get to a slide that has a question. I'm going to read the question, and if you cannot read it, don't worry about it. I'll read it if you can't see it. And if you can't see it and you want to go ahead and answer it anytime while I'm talking, you can go ahead and do that. If you can see right now, there's a little green light right here that lets us know that the polling is open. So at some point in the presentation, I'm put on a little timer. You'll have 10 seconds to complete your answer. Until that 10 seconds is over, you can change your answer if you want. So, and the buttons on the clickers correspond to, you can't really see it here, but it's either A or B. So A for yes or B for no. So for instance, we'll get to a question. Have you previously participated in one of TDOT's interactive presentations on the 25-year long-range transportation plan in the past? So you can either click A for yes, and A would just be that first button in the top left, or B for no. Then we'll get a chance to actually see the results from the whole room to see what the room thought. So this is anonymous. Nobody will know individually how you felt, unless you wanted to share that. But we'll get a chance to see the results of the whole room. So 85% of y'all have not seen a presentation by TDOT regarding the long-range plan. So 15% of y'all have already, okay? So that's how this is gonna work. It's really easy and really simple, and hopefully it'll be informative to you. As I talked earlier, so we've been doing this, we did a presentation for over a year and a half where we went out and gathered input. It started off in August of 2013 where TDOT leadership went and did 8 regional summits. So in 8 different locations across the state, TDOT leadership went out, and most of those were made up of elected officials. So it was the city and county mayors, as well as representatives and senators across the state that came and found out what we were planning to do over the next couple of years with this long-range plan. And we asked them several questions throughout the presentation. So after we did that, of course, we were able to collect that data. Then people like myself, there's 8 of me across the state, community transportation planners, and we've been going out over the last couple of years, collecting the same data from just our residents across the state, just like you. So like I said, we reached over 5,000. We call that Book a Planner. So we would go out and we may talk at a different Rotary club meeting, or maybe some type of association meeting, or a different senior center, to all types of agencies across the state. We also, in 2013, TDOT conducted a customer survey. And once again, that sampled a select number of residents across the state, as well as business owners, public agencies, and also elected officials. So we were able to gather input from over 3,000 residents there. We also did an online survey where we collected 3,500 or over 3,500 responses. And we also had some focus groups where we delved a little bit more into depth to see what people thought across the state about the transportation system and how we need to move forward. So saying all that, we've collected over 12,000 different community inputs, and we're continuing to, just like this with today's presentation. Okay, before I talk a little bit more about the plan, I want to talk some about the responsibilities of TDOT. A lot of times when people think of TDOT, the first thing that comes to their mind, actually I ask y'all, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Oh, potholes. Snow removal. We'll talk about that, good. Or even just roads in general, right? A lot of times people think of the roads, they think of interstates, because that's how most of us get around, some type of vehicle, right? Railroad crossing. Exactly, railroad crossing, very good. So this is what I'm going to talk a little bit about. A lot of times, like I said, people think just about roadways and bridges when it comes to TDOT. Actually, in the past, TDOT was called the Highway Department because, once again, that was most of the ways that people thought about transportation. But now we're trying to be more multimodal and think about other modes of transportation. So like I said, roadways and bridges, we have over 1,100 miles of interstates throughout the state of Tennessee. We also have 13,000 miles of state routes. We carry a lot of that traffic across our state. We also have over 19,000 bridges in the state of Tennessee. 8,000 of those are state maintained. And all bridges in Tennessee are inspected on a 2-year cycle. So we try to keep up with them, make sure any maintenance that needs to be done or any replacement, we try to stay on top of that. Incident management, someone mentioned snow removal. We'll get to that too. But we also talk, when it comes to incident management, we also have obviously accidents on our roadways, or even just congestion or cars breaking down. Well, one way we're able to monitor that is through intelligent transportation systems, or ITS for short. Maybe kind of hard to see here, but this is just a room full of a lot of TV screens. And those TV screens monitor the highways. They have cameras along the interstate. So that way we're able to tell if there's congestion, why there's congestion, is there an accident, whatever it is somebody run out of gas. And then what we're able to do is send these yellow help trucks, which you may be familiar with, out to help those people. So whether they run out of gas, we have some gas on here that people can get a little gallon or something to help them get to the next exit. Or like I said, a lot of times even in crashes, our help truck drivers may be from some of the first responders before police officers and ambulances can get there, just because they're notified by the people that see these things happen on the TV screens. The intelligent transportation system, you also may notice the message boards that you see on the interstates. A lot of times they're telling you about, even reminding people not to text and drive or buckle up, but we really use those. Those are really in place also to be able to, once again, inform people of incidents that may be ahead. So maybe you may want to take a detour instead of getting caught into the congestion that may be ahead. Rockfall mitigation is a big thing, especially more on the eastern part of our state, where roadways were built and we had to cut out the side of a hill or mountain. So a lot of times the rocks may fall into the road, so you have to make sure that those things are cleared away. Snow removal, as people once again may experience more in the eastern part of the state, but we got a bit of snow this past winter here in Middle Tennessee as well. So, and as a result of that, we had more potholes. So we had to make sure we were clearing those things up as well. There's also 26 public transit agencies serving the state of Tennessee, all 95 counties throughout the state. TDOT doesn't operate any of these agencies, but a lot of the federal funds that come from the Federal Transit Administration come through TDOT, and they go out to these different transit agencies. So obviously you have the bigger ones, such as in the bigger cities like Nashville and Memphis, but then you also have smaller agencies, such as the agency here in Murfreesboro. And then there's even rural transit agencies that may not necessarily operate on a regular schedule, but they operate an on-demand service where they're able to pick up people to take them to their destination, whether that be to the store or to a doctor's appointment. Bicycle and pedestrian is another important part of our transportation system. A lot of times people don't think about that, but it really is. It's another way to get people around, even people that need to catch transit. We need to make sure that they have a safe way to be able to get from their home to the bus stop and back. So some of the programs that we have that are federally funded as well as state funded, one would be the Safe Routes to School program. It's a federally funded program that we still have some money left over to be able to fund different projects that cities and counties may have to do improvements around schools that encourage the kids to be able to walk and bike to school. Transportation Alternatives is another federally funded program that once again cities and counties could apply for. It used to be called enhancement grants, but these grants once again help cities to provide walking trails as well as improving sidewalks and bicycle paths in order to continue to operate our transportation system. And we also have a state-funded multimodal access grant, which has been existing for 2 years now. Same thing, it helps people to actually, a good example of this is, I'm sure you all seen along maybe a state route that doesn't have a sidewalk, but you may still see a walking path, people walking up and down that road. So there may be just a brown ditch in the green grass because a lot of people may walk that path. Well, what does that tell us? It tells us that maybe there needs to be a sidewalk along that section of roadway so people can get along there safely. Or like I say, you may see people walking on shoulders. So different cities and counties can once again apply for grants to be able to improve their transportation and infrastructure outside of just the roadways through these 3 programs. And our other transportation facilities that operate throughout the state, which once again, Tennessee or TDOT doesn't operate any of these agencies or modes of transportation, but they are very important, and it's something that we make sure we're aware of, such as the railways, airports, and waterways. One of the things that's really important about this, obviously airports carry people, but all these different modes carry our cargo, our freight, the things that we need to get to our homes and to our stores that we need to go out and shop and buy, such as food and clothes. So all these modes are very important. TDOT has a freight advisory committee that formed a couple of years ago. And with that committee, we're able to meet with public agencies as well as private agencies that operate these different freight and goods carriers. So that we were able to meet and say, kind of plan for what needs to happen over the next several years in order to make sure that we're keeping up with the trends and making sure we're providing good enough service to make sure that Tennessee can move these goods, and also can be an economic benefit for the state as well. Okay, so that tells you a little bit about what we need to consider when, all the transportation systems that exist in the state. What we've learned over the last couple of years too, we've done some statistical analysis and found out that Tennessee is expecting 2 million more people in the state by the year 2040. Just to give you a comparison, right now we're at about 6.5 million people. So we'll have 8.5 million people by 2040. Just 1 million of that population is going to be right here in Middle Tennessee. Rutherford County is one of the fastest growing counties here. So between Rutherford, Williamson, Davidson, Montgomery County, Sumner County, there's going to be over 1 million more people here in the next 25 years. Across the state, along with the 2 million more people, we're going to have 2 million more jobs. So that's a good thing. You definitely want to have some jobs for those new people, but at the same time, that's going to mean more manufacturers, more freight and goods that need to be shipped on our transportation system. Another thing that we're watching is our population that are over 65 years in age is almost going to double. It's going to increase by 90% by 2040. So what does that mean? That means we need to make sure that we're providing alternative modes of transportation for those that either cannot or choose not to drive on our roadways. Okay, so a couple of times I mentioned the previous presentation that we did for about 1.5 years. And you just some different pictures from those presentations. So along with the presentations and the regional summits, we collected a lot of data. I think in that presentation we had like 14 to 15 questions that we asked people. How do you think TDOT should operate or think about this particular subject over the next 5 to 10 years? So what we're going to do now is go into some of those questions, and this is where you get a chance to use your clickers and get your opinion on some of these thoughts. So one of the questions that we asked was, actually one of the results that we received was 82% of the people that we polled thought that TDOT should invest in areas that have the greatest needs instead of evenly balancing projects across the state. So what we're saying, that people thought that, where are the greatest needs? Where is the most congestion? Where is the most safety issues? Invest there instead of just spreading the money evenly across the state. 87% of people thought that we should evaluate all projects equally based on today's needs instead of honoring historic commitments that may be remaining on our books unfunded. And just explain that a little bit. Once again, TDOT, obviously has been in existence for a while, and one of the ways we would fund projects is maybe there was just a city or a county that came to TDOT and said, hey, we need a bypass. Traffic is getting a little congested downtown. Maybe we need a new bypass, or and these bypass, tens of millions of dollars. Well, TDOT may have studied that project, and that project may have even moved on. Once you get a study, then you move on to the environmental phase, then you design the roadway, and then if there's any properties that need to be purchased, you have to purchase right away. Then eventually you get to construction. So it can be a long process and a costly process. So what we've done over the last few years is really take another look at those old projects to see if they're still needed. And if they're not still needed, what can we do in order to solve some of the issues at a less cost to our citizens? So for instance, like I said, a city may have wanted a bypass, and maybe at the time it seemed valid enough to study, and maybe it's went on to, let's say they had an environmental documentation, but maybe because funds have lessened, and it's maybe actually funds have kind of lessened in our pockets, it's a little more difficult to pay for all these different projects. So what we've done is what we call the expedited project delivery process, where we're able to go back, look at these projects and say, okay, instead of building a $30 million bypass around the city, maybe it'll benefit the city more and it'll benefit the state overall. If we look at that road, instead of bypassing it, maybe there's $8 million or $10 million worth of improvements that can be made on the road to make it safer, lessen the congestion, and overall, it's going to benefit those businesses that already exist along that roadway, because now you're going to have more traffic that's still going to move along that, but move at a better rate as opposed to bypassing it. And a lot of people may miss out on some of the economic development opportunities. So a lot of cities have been taking advantage of this, and TDOT's really been meeting with cities and trying to see where we can do these types of projects. And like I said, it's really helping out to save a lot of money throughout the state. So how do we quantify need? Those other questions talked about, well, where's the greatest need at? So this is where your first question is coming up, promise. So 95 counties all over the state. TDOT's broken up into 4 different regions. We're right here in Region 3, here in Murfreesboro. There's over 6.3 million people across the state, 3.5 million jobs, and we have, once again, over 14,000 miles of roadway throughout the state. So knowing all that, here's your first question. How should TDOT determine the distribution of investments across the state? Should it be based solely on, well, I don't want to say solely, but should we focus more attention on population or more attention on the transportation system assets, so the actual roadways and the bridges and transit, sidewalks and bikeways? Or should we focus it on land area? Or D, should we focus it on the jobs and economy? And like I said, I think all these are important. So it's not an either or, but maybe what do you think is more important? And 9 people respond. The results in the room, 33% actually both said population and transportation system assets. And 22% said jobs and economy, with 11% for land area. So I've done this presentation for about 5 times so far. And usually land area is the smallest, but even yesterday in the group that I was at, they had a tie between jobs and economy and transportation system assets. Population, like I said, depends on where we are, where we see that kind of go up and down. All right, another question that we had. 68% of people thought that TDOT should fund a larger number of small projects in more places instead of funding a smaller number of large projects in a few places. So once again, they're saying, instead of doing, big projects, just a few big projects, let's see if we can spread the money out a little bit more on smaller projects to improve our system so we can do more of those. So, question, as TDOT looks at future needs, which one of the following is more important for us to consider? A, operational improvements, which tend to be lower in costs. Examples of these would be intersection improvements, or maybe traffic signalization improvements, roadway geometrics, which would pretty much be like adding a turn lane at an intersection, or taking out a bad curb to make a roadway safer. Or B, major capacity improvements, which tend to be higher in cost. And once again, these are the bypasses or the major widenings on roadways. So once again, which one do you think TDOT should consider to be more important over the next several years? All right, 53% said operational improvements as opposed to major capacity improvements. I believe yesterday in my presentation it was almost exactly the same, except it was opposite. They said 53% more major capacity improvements. And yesterday's presentation was in Humphreys County. So this to give y'all just a kind of example of what different areas are thinking. But so far, all the presentations I've given, these have been pretty close, 50 to 40 something percent. All right, another one is 75% of people thought that TDOT should improve the capacity of existing roads that are currently congested instead of building new roads to encourage economic development. Once again, what that means is people are, probably obviously stuck in a lot of traffic. They're saying TDOT need to focus on, clearing this traffic so we can, move more cars and I can get where I need to go a lot faster, as opposed to building new roads that encourage economic development. TDOT does both of these. The state does both of these. Obviously, a new road such as Highway 64, maybe that's going to bring more economic development to the southern part of the state because they have better access across the state for freight to move, just as an example. So once again, but 75% thought I'd rather not be stuck in traffic, right? Another one, 67% thought that we should increase the capacity on highways to improve traffic flow instead of resurfacing highways to improve the condition of the driving surface. So just a quick one on that one. During our presentation, we did talk about, we bragged a little bit because TDOT's always in the top 5 states when it comes to our driving surface. There's a CNBC poll that comes out. I believe right now we're ranked number 5. Previously we were number 2 amongst pollsters that thought that, once again, our roadways are pretty smooth. We do a pretty good job with the surface. But obviously, so people probably agree with that, but a lot of people, once again, are kind of stuck with being stuck in traffic. So that was one of the things that they thought TDOT should focus more Okay, our next question is, if TDOT looks at increasing capacity, where should we place our emphasis, on operational efficiency or investments in alternative modes? So the operational efficiency, be example like you were saying, open up another lane or anything for vehicles. So maybe making the traffic signalization better, or building up bypass, whatever it is that's more aimed at just those autos, those vehicles and trucks that are on our roadway. That's for A. B is more investments in alternative modes. So that's investing more in public transit. Maybe you need to beef up our public transit system. Maybe there needs to be commuter rail or light rail and things like that to get more people off of the roads. But this can also include carpools and van pools. Maybe we need to put more people inside one car instead of just one person driving up and down the road. That'll take more cars off the roadway. So either A, operational vehicles or operational efficiency for vehicles, or B, investments in alternative modes. So 60% say operational efficiency for vehicles, 40% investments in alternative modes. That one kind of varies. I think most of the time, until now, I'll probably say most of the time I go out, you see more operational efficiency in vehicles in rural areas. But obviously this isn't a rural area. You guys don't live in a rural area. And you all say operational efficiency for vehicles. So interesting. That's my last question. Really quick, I want to share with you more ways that we can gather input from you and you can share input. We have an online mapping tool. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with just using like Google Maps or Bing Maps. This is really similar. You can go to our website, go to this online mapping tool, and you have the opportunity to tell us where you find certain issues. Maybe it's roadways that you're familiar with, could be right outside your house, could be roads that you drive on every day. You could tell us about those problems. So you can go in and either select whether it's a whole route, so if you want to draw a line for a particular route, or if you want to put a point in it because you want to talk about maybe a particular intersection, or maybe a place where a bus stop needs to be, or there's some issue with a bus stop. Once you select whether it's a route or point, then you get to tell us what kind of issue is it. Is it a safety issue? Is it congestion? Is it about freight, bicycle, pedestrian examples, or for those examples. Then once you select that, then you'll actually go in and draw your line or put your point down. So in this example, somebody drew a line that kind of went on several different streets. Once you do that, then you actually can just type in your comment. So what is the issue? Type as much as you want. Let us know what the issue is. If there's crashes outside my house every day, tell us about that. If there's a transit stop that you think needs to be upgraded, tell us about that. And once you do that, you just hit submit, and like I said, that goes back to our, back to us, and then that way we can kind of tell where some of the problem areas are that maybe our data isn't picking up on, but we're hearing it from our citizens. So obviously, especially if we're seeing problem areas, because a lot of people are letting us know about those particular areas, it's something that we can kind of take heed of. We actually just had a new upgrade of our website throughout the state. It's tn.gov/TDOT. So tn.gov/TDOT. But it's, like I said, it's a really easy tool to use, and we really recommend people to go in there and tell us about some of the problems that you may find.